The live stream has been, oh, it says it's live. Can you see it on YouTube?
Yeah, it says live on YouTube. I see the little thing, but I can,
Yeah. Okay. All right, let's get started then. Good morning. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me well? Perfect.
And
great.
Are you recording?
Yes, I will be in just a second.
Good. All right.
Thanks for the reminder. All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us again. We are very excited today to have Jillian, our founder and president, give us a talk about the adaptations of sharks. If you have any questions, please leave them in the Q&A section. We have disabled the chat, I hope, for this session. And if we're really sorry if we can't get to your question. We get so many questions come through. I'll be answering them while Jillian is doing her presentation, but if I can't get to all of them, I'm really sorry. There'll also be an opportunity to ask Jillian some questions at the end. If your question still hasn't been answered, you can still head to our website where we have loads of information, and you will probably find your answer there. Today's panelist is Jillian. She's normally on my side of things, but I'm very excited to have her as a panelist today. She is, as I mentioned, she's the founder and president of Sharks for Kids. She does an amazing job of working tirelessly to share her passion and knowledge for sharks with children all around the world. She's a little bit of a woman of all trades with a background in science and media, and she's also a children's book writer. So if you head to our website, you might find Norman the Nurse Shark, which is the book she wrote a couple of years ago. And she really is a role model for many girls and young women out there, including myself. So Jillian, welcome on the panelist seat. How are you?
I'm good, and thank you guys so much, and thank you, Jenny, for the very kind words. And yeah, thank you so much to everyone who's joining us today. We've had a lot of fun with the webinars. We've had some amazing guests, a lot of really great questions, and like Jenny said, we're going to do our best to get to as many as we can. But you can also just send us an email via the website if there's something you really want to know and you can't find the answer and we don't get a chance to. But we'll do the best we can. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. And I'm going to go ahead and get started talking about the amazing world of shark adaptations. So just a little intro, I am a marine biologist, and I've been lucky enough to travel all over the world and work with sharks in various ways, from catching and tagging research projects, diving and filming for TV shows and books, and then also Sharks for Kids, which is the nonprofit I started in 2012. And we do programs just like this. So teaching students all over the world in person and virtually, hands-on learning experiences, field trips. So definitely check out the website when you're done if you haven't already, because there's lots of materials and opportunities. So today we're going to talk about shark adaptations. Right? Because these animals are absolutely incredible. And they've been around for over 400 million years. And they've developed features on their bodies, things that they can do that really help them survive. And I love these cartoons from Support Our Sharks, just kind of talking about just some fun adaptations. And you can think of adaptations are things that help the shark find food, not become lunch, so not be someone else's food, reproduction, and just really surviving in their marine habitat, right? And that could include specific tools that they have to do that. There are over 500 different species of shark, and a lot of times when people think of sharks, they think of that one in the top middle, the white shark. sort of has that pointy shape, that kind of streamlined body, big dorsal fin, triangular teeth. That's what you think of when you think of sharks. And yes, many of them do have that shape. But if you look here at just a few of these others, yes, these are all sharks, but they're all very, very different. And it's not just the way they look. The looks, their outside features may help them survive, but it's also a lot of functions, behaviors, things that they can do that will also help them survive in different habitats. So yes, sharks live in the ocean. There are also some freshwater sharks, or sharks that can go back and forth, but there are sharks that are designed for very specific habitats. And it might be that they're designed to be able to thrive in that habitat when they're younger. And as they get older, they're better suited for a different habitat. And that might be seagrass beds, coral reefs, out in the open ocean, very deep parts of the ocean, or like you see on the left, that top image, little baby lemon shark in the mangroves, right? These bushes that have their roots right down in the water that create this incredible nursery habitat. All right, so first up, there are some adaptations that all sharks have. It's actually some of the things that make them a shark. So this is a really good question to ponder and think about. You may already know the answer, but believe it or not, sharks are actually fish. And they're a little bit different than other fish. So first thing, our fish have bones. Sharks do not actually have any bones in their body. If you guys all bend the top of your ear, think about the end of your nose, how it wiggles, you can see that it's made of cartilage. That's what makes it flexible. Right? On the left, that's the inside of a shark fin. All right, and that is made of cartilage. It's very flexible, so it helps them move. It weighs less than bone, so it's actually part of the reason that sharks don't just sink to the bottom of the ocean. Another reason that they're buoyant, or their ability to float but not go bobbing up at the surface and not sink, is they have a really oily liver. Right? You can see the cartilage there, the skeleton. So no bones in their body at all, just that cartilage. And then the liver is a significant part of the shark's body, anywhere from about 25% of the total weight. And it's got oil in it. And if you've ever done an experiment, or if you haven't, this is a really fun one to do, mix oil and water together and see what happens. So this is something that fish do not have. They have a swim bladder, which you would think of as sort of an internal balloon. Right? Sharks don't have that, so they have this oily liver that helps them with their buoyancy, or the ability to not be too floaty to the surface or sink to the bottom of the ocean. We look at the outside of a fish, we see those shiny silver scales on the right. If you look at shark skin on the left, it might appear smooth. If any of you have ever touched a shark before, then you know it's definitely not smooth. Feels a lot like sandpaper. And the reason shark skin is so rough is because, believe it or not, it's actually covered in teeth. Their whole body is covered in microscopic little teeth called dermal denticles. And you can see this is a tiger shark, skin up close and then up even closer. And you can see the little points. Right? These are very, very strong, right? So they sort of act as a suit of armor for the shark. And each shark species has a unique pattern, unique size and shape with their dermal denticles. So if you had a piece of skin from a shark and you looked at it under a microscope, you could actually tell what species it's from without seeing the animal. Now these here are from a leopard shark. You can really see the points up close. And again, super strong, but they're also hydrodynamic. They can allow the shark to move through the water easily. If you think about sharks swimming around, or if you were going to go for a swim, you wouldn't put on your big winter jacket and boots and a hat and jump in the pool or the ocean. You're going to wear a swimsuit or a wetsuit. Right? Think of Olympic swimmers. They wear special suits to make them faster, so they're not getting wet and heavy and hard to move in the water. Well, sharks don't get to pick their own outfits. It's sort of built in. So this is an amazing adaptation that helps them be more efficient, making it easier to move through the water. Now, talking about moving, you may have heard that sharks have to stay swimming to stay alive. Yes, some species are ram ventilators. They have to move forward with their mouth open for water to come in. But there are sharks that can buccal pump. And we'll see some more of these later on, ones that kind of rest on the bottom, like the lemon shark on the top and these nurse sharks on the bottom. They can actually suck the water in and move it over their gills. So for them, being able to rest on the bottom, maybe hide from predators or kind of wait for their lunch to get a bit closer. We can look here. This is a lemon shark up close as it's breathing, that water passing through as it's resting on the bottom and pumping that water. So we've talked about sharks that swim to breathe, or sharks that can actually breathe while resting. Then you have the sand tiger shark. And they have this pretty cool adaptation where they can gulp air. They can actually go to the surface, suck in some air, because think about it, sharks use gills, they breathe underwater their whole life. They never have to go to the surface like a mammal to get air. But this shark will actually gulp air to increase its buoyancy so it can kind of hover, right? It's not moving forward, it's not resting on the bottom, it's hovering. And then one of the funny adaptations is in order to release that air, these sharks actually sort of fart or release that air out of their cloaca. All right, so we've got kind of some different methods that allowing them to hover, either to rest on the bottom and breathe, or those that have to swim to breathe. Now, if we start at the head, sharks do have eyes, and believe it or not, they have similar parts to our very own eyes, rods and cones, retina. Some sharks have excellent night vision, and like this nurse shark is primarily nocturnal. Okay, and you can see they do come in different shapes and sizes. Very small nurse shark eye, a much larger great hammerhead eye, and the eye of a lemon shark. So different abilities depending on their habitats, whether they're in the deep sea or if they're more active at night, their vision can vary a bit. And some sharks also have this really cool nictitating membrane. If you look at the top left, that tiger shark kind of looks like a white eyelid. If you watch this video, as it comes up, it's going to look like it's winking at you. Watch the eye closely. So it has that because sometimes their lunch fights back. All right, imagine if your sandwich started slapping you in the face. All right, we're pretty lucky our sandwiches don't do that. But oftentimes when sharks are going after a meal, it puts up a fight and it scratches and bites, and their eyes are really important, so they want to protect them. Well, they don't have safety goggles, but this is an adaptation that some sharks have, that special eyelid that comes up and over. So the shark was approaching the camera and it was using its senses, it was trying to figure out, and it wanted to make sure that the camera wasn't going to hurt it, so it just covered its eye really quickly. Now, speaking of eyes, I get asked a lot about hammerheads and their vision. Those eyes are so wide out on the side of the head, they must not be able to see very well. Actually, great hammerheads are kind of a super powered shark, right? Their senses are amazing. Not that they don't have the same ones as other sharks, but that head is sort of a super center for finding food, and that includes their vision. So those eyes are wide set, and the way they're positioned and the way a hammerhead will swim, watch this, kind of this S-shaped pattern, they have a full 360 degrees. This is using a fin camera. It's attached. We put the shark to work, right? So we can see what its world is like, who it's hanging out with. But you notice that S-shaped pattern, right? So that, with the position of the eyes, actually gives them super powered vision. And another adaptation is that large head, which is called the cephalofoil. If you notice on these images, especially the one of the mouth up close, looks like the shark's got freckles all over its face. And there's a lot of those because they have this giant head space, more surface area for more of those ampullae of Lorenzini. Sharks have the same 5 senses we do, but they have some extra ones that help them survive in their underwater world. And each one of those dots is filled with a gel-like substance These are electroreceptors, meaning they can detect electrical pulses, right? And that might not make sense. Electricity underwater, that doesn't seem like a good idea, but it's a little bit different than plugging something into the wall. Right now, all of us, our hearts are giving off a pulse, right? And that's what the shark can feel. That's that this kind of sense that these are detecting. So the sharks swimming along are like that hammerhead scanning the bottom, right? And it finds a stingray. Now, it might not be able to see or hear or smell the stingray, but it can actually feel its heartbeat. This is sort of the built-in metal detector for sharks. You can see a little bit closer what those pores actually look like. And if you think about it, they're all around the snout. They're right near the mouth. So when it's detecting food, it doesn't have to worry about trying to get it to the other end of the body or figure out. It's right there, ready to go. Another adaptation that sharks have, not just hammerheads or this tiger shark and lemon shark, but all sharks have to help them find food. And we can take an even closer look. Those are not balls of yarn or string. Those are those ampullae, right? Those little black dots, again, that you see there, right there. And we see those skin teeth. This is from a bonnet head, which is the smallest species of hammerhead, right? So really cool to see up close. Now, while we're on the head end, we've got to talk about teeth, right? So shark teeth come in a lot of different sizes and shapes. They're not always that pointy triangle that we often see. And you can think of these as the shark's built-in silverware. So different sharks have adapted to eat different things. They're certainly not mindless eating machines, eating everything in sight. If you look at the nurse shark on the top left, really tiny teeth with a hard plate. So if you were going to eat a hard piece of candy, you're going to slide that to your back teeth, your molars, to break it up. You're not going to try and break it with your front teeth. Nurse sharks crush their food, things like conch, which are big snails, lobster or crabs, fish, they grind them up. Down in the bottom left is a tiger shark. They have little serrations, like a knife on their teeth. They can actually cut through a turtle shell. The bottom right is a lemon shark, long and thin, like a fork, trying to grab at fish. And then the top right is a cookie cutter shark. Now, their teeth are pretty incredible, and this is an amazing adaptation. This is a small shark, and they'll swim up to other sharks, a big whale, even a larger fish. Like if you guys saw Dean's talk, he talked about, I think they had a swordfish that had a chunk out of it. They swim up, they hook on, and they take a chunk of flesh out, right? So they don't need to eat the whole animal, they just take a little piece. Right? So they don't have to catch the whole animal. They just got to be able to swim up to something and take a little bit of a chunk out. So really, we see a lot of adaptations, and you kind of have this idea of what teeth are supposed to look like, but here are just a few. And you can notice right away how different their teeth actually are, right? And when we look at their teeth, it can actually help us determine a lot about their diet. Again, they're not eating everything in sight. They're adapted to eat specific things. And oftentimes they'll be found in a certain habitat because of the food that's available, the food that their body is designed to be able to eat. Now, as we move along the body, sharks have fins. And when we think of fins, we think of swimming. Yeah, that's what they use to swim. But there are sharks that use their fins for other things. So the thresher shark on the top left has a giant caudal fin, a giant tail fin, and it will swim into a school of fish and just like a whip, snap that tail over its head and stun the fish. So it slows them down, makes it easier to grab lunch. Down in the bottom right is a nurse shark, and they don't have the lower part of their tail. So if you think of the top and bottom part kind of split of a shark fin, they don't have that bottom bit. I'm trying to see if I have another photo I could show you. See if we can see it on this tiger shark. Yeah, so on the tail fin, you can see there's a top and bottom bit. The nurse shark doesn't have that bottom bit. They're designed to be on the bottom. They spend a lot of time resting on the bottom, hiding under ledges and bits of coral. So their body, all right, and you can see their fins are really flexible as well. Other sharks have very rigid fins. Theirs are flexible, so they can kind of dig in the sand as they're bracing to suck something up, and also kind of waddle along a little bit. Now, the one in the middle is an epaulet shark, and they have lots of amazing adaptations, from being able to hold their breath. They like to explore tide pools, and so sometimes when the water goes out, they're stuck, so they gotta walk back in the ocean. But even when they're underwater, these sharks prefer to walk. So the coral reef has all the food they like to eat, little crabs and snails. It's a great place for them to hide out. Again, quite a small shark, less than about a meter. And so, yeah, and you see that big black spot? That's an eye spot. Because they're small, right? If a big predator swims by, it's gonna look at that and go, whoa, that's a really big animal. I'm not gonna mess with it. Actually, it's a little shark. So another way that their body, their patterning is helping them to survive. So as we move across the body, talking about coloration, we saw that eye spot. Many species have counter shading, a darker shade on the top of the body and a lighter shade underneath. So if you look up at that hammerhead, right, if we look up, it's lighter underneath, it's kind of blending in with the sunlight that's shining down in the water, makes it a bit of camouflage. Whereas the darker bit, if an animal's looking down, they're gonna see the depths, the deeper water, so it kind of reflects, blends in as well, right? So this is a form of camouflage. Other sharks have stronger camouflage that really matches their environment. So we have an angel shark on the top left, resting in the sand, and they'll actually kind of bury down a little bit. Another shark that can rest on the bottom. We have an ornate wobbegong on the top right, and you can see when you look, you've got to look closely. That one's really well hidden. Down in the bottom, we have a lesser spotted cat shark, and then on the bottom left is a dwarf ornate wobbegong. And you can see if they're holding still and a fish swims by, either a larger predator or a tiny little fish, either way, you're not going to see that animal. Right, so some really impressive camouflage. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is probably one of my favorite adaptations that sharks have. So many species of deep sea shark, and as well as the swell shark, have the ability to glow. So different mechanisms for glow, and with the deep sea sharks, the bioluminescence, the ability to absorb light and reflect it, or some of them have photospores, these little light producing cells. So they can produce this glow. You can think of like a porch light when it's turned on and the bugs fly around in the deep dark sea. This is a way for them to attract lunch. Now this swell shark, a little bit different. They have some proteins that are able to, or kind of think of producing this light, but we don't see it. So down in the bottom is what we see. Little brown shark. Up at the top though, using special cameras, this is what other swell sharks see. We can think of it like a secret handshake, a way to communicate. Sharks don't actually make noise, so they have different methods of being able to communicate with each other. And the amazing thing is, as I mentioned earlier, is sharks have been around for over 400 million years. And there's over 500 different species. And you can see the adaptations. Another one is, let me see which side I'm on there, the bull shark. They can actually swim into fresh water. So they have the ability to stay in salt water, but then they can osmoregulate. They can adjust the amount of salt in their body to adapt to saltier water or then going into fresh water. And they're able to do that. A lot of times they'll go up into kind of brackish water, a mix, and freshwater areas, particularly think of like the Everglades in Florida, to actually give birth, right? So every species, if you look at it, has something that it has adapted to help it survive in a particular habitat, catch its food, hide out. And really, that's something that I find so incredible about sharks. Yes, there are features that are common that make them a shark, something they share in common, but there are so many different adaptations and features from the way they look, their behaviors, and things that their body can do that really help them survive. So it's pretty incredible. We could probably spend an entire day talking about adaptations, but this is just some of the ones that I think are really interesting. And yeah, I wanted to share with you today. You can check out the website. We actually do have an activity packet as well. And hopefully you have some good questions now about these amazing animals and their adaptations.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jillian. That was great. I have a lot of questions coming through, but I'm going to start with two that I always ask our guests. One is, what's your favorite shark?
My favorite shark is, let me see. Oh no, I'm pointing the wrong way. I got to figure this out. All right, is this guy right here, the great hammerhead. The most amazing animal on the planet, in my opinion. Just seeing them underwater, think about the adaptations I just talked about. The eyes, the extra space for the ampullae, just incredible. And where I live in the Bahamas, we actually get to spend a lot of time with this shark, and they migrate through, they travel in the winter months, and it's really the only place in the world that you can dive with that many great hammerheads, and it's in very shallow water. Sadly though, they're now a critically endangered species. So despite having all of those incredible adaptations to survive in the ocean, it's no match for human fishing and the demands that we're putting on the oceans. So hopefully learning about them, spending time with them, and sharing that is a way to keep them from becoming extinct.
Great. And the second question, which we get a lot, is what's your advice for children out there who want to help sharks and maybe work with sharks when they get older?
Yeah, so no matter what your age, there's actually a lot you can do. So just learning about sharks, learning the facts, because we hear a lot of things. Man-eating monsters, they're scary, the blood, the bites, that's what people fixate on. But as you just saw, sharks can do some really cool stuff, some really amazing things. And so learning about them, learning the facts, sharing that with your friends and family, talking about sharks, right? It's a great time to do a little of your own research as well, and share those fun facts with your family. They're not man-eating monsters. Shark bites are very, very rare. So other things that are just really good for the oceans, I'm sure everybody's talked about this, but using less plastic. If you eat seafood, ask mom and dad what you're eating. Where did it come from? Get them to bring their canvas bags to the grocery store and reusable bottles. Do a project on sharks, read a book, write a poem, do a video, research project. There's lots of things that you can do, and it's really getting that information out there about sharks versus a lot of the stuff that we hear or see on the internet that isn't necessarily true. And then as you get older, and you're wanting to work with sharks, is studying marine biology, marine policy, kind of conservation issues, environmental science, zoology. Those are really strong programs, but also doing internships and volunteering. Even if you become an accountant or a doctor, you could still get involved as a diver, volunteering your time to help organizations and research. So definitely as you get older, there's even more opportunities to kind of get involved and help these amazing animals.
Fantastic. Thank you. Okay, let's move to some questions in the Q&A section. We have questions about teeth. How many teeth do sharks have? Do you know?
So it really depends on the type of shark. And that's going to be the answer for a lot of these questions, is they're all sharks, but they are very different. And you saw the shape of the teeth, the number varies as well. And unlike us, when we lose our baby teeth, we get our adult teeth and that's it. So we got to take good care of them. Sharks are producing teeth their entire life, but they fall out a lot as well. Imagine if every day at lunch you lost a tooth, right? You'd run out pretty quickly. Something like a lemon shark that can live up to 40 years can have up to about 30,000 teeth in its lifetime. Right? So constantly producing new teeth as long as they're alive. So it really depends on the type of shark, how many they have in their mouth, anywhere from 50 to several hundred at a time, multiple rows, but thousands over their lifetime.
Fantastic. And what about so you talked about how their skin is covered in teeth. Do they lose those as well?
Yes, those can come back, and sometimes you'll see images where there's actually gaps. And so, yeah, and those will kind of fill in and fill the space. So not the same as you would think of the teeth falling out constantly, and a little bit different than how our skin on like our hands or feet is always coming off, even though we don't see it. Yeah, and it's kind of a different replacement process. But you do, yeah, that definitely does happen, especially think of if they got a cut or a bite or something on their skin, just like you would sort of have a space where your scar or the cut was and it breaks the skin. Same thing can happen with sharks. It's just a little bit harder to break their skin because it's a little bit tougher than ours.
Great. And what about basking sharks? Do they have teeth?
They do. So there's kind of this idea that things like nurse sharks, basking sharks, whale sharks don't have teeth. They actually do, even though they're not, well, the nurse sharks are using theirs, but basking sharks and whale sharks are filter feeders. So big open mouth, like an underwater vacuum cleaner, swimming along, sucking in that plankton. So they don't necessarily need to use their teeth because they're swallowing and filtering, but they are present.
Great. Okay, Theo, age 6, asks what the stripes on the tiger shark skin are for.
So when they're born, it's believed that it's a camouflage, helping them kind of blend in with their surroundings. And then as they get a bit older, they're a little bit more pronounced when they're younger. And you can think of they're going to be in kind of coral reef edges habitats. And so it's believed to be sort of a bit of camouflage to help them when they're younger, because mom and dad don't take care of their babies. Baby sharks are on their own. So oftentimes they'll have different mechanisms to sort of help them survive because they don't have their big parent to watch out for them. And lots of different predators will look for baby sharks because they're much smaller. So it's a much easier meal for them.
Fantastic. And on the same subject, are there any sharks that can change their skin color for camouflage?
Yes, probably one of the coolest ones is actually the zebra shark. Some people also call them leopard sharks, but they're born with black and white stripes. And it's thought that it mimics a sea snake found in the same area so that predators will stay away because they recognize that as a venomous sea snake. And then as they grow up, they get spots that look more like a leopard shark, nothing like a zebra. I'm trying to see, I might have a photo on my computer of it. I'll just check real quick, guys. I actually do. So let me see if I can pull this up quick. Yeah. So can you guys see that? All right, so there's a zebra shark baby at the top, and then you can see the spots down at the bottom. So yes, they absolutely can change their skin.
Great. Okay, so we had someone ask how sharks and stingrays are related.
So they're both cartilaginous. They're both considered elasmobranchs, but the easiest is probably just to think of them as cousins. Sharks have that rounded shape, those gill slits on the side, where rays and stingrays have been flattened. The mouth is underneath. The gill slits have slid underneath. So a lot of the same features and characteristics, really just a flattened version. So probably the simplest explanation is really just they're cousins. They're flat cousins.
Fantastic. Do you know of any species, Nicholas asks, beside the Greenland shark that live under the ice?
So there are species that do, I think a lot of deep water species that are in colder water. I haven't worked as much with deep water species. I'm absolutely fascinated by them, but there are definitely species that migrate into colder temperatures. Think of salmon sharks will migrate and be found up off the coast of Alaska. And there are species of dogfish that are found down near Antarctica as well. So quite possible under the ice. But probably, Greenland shark is one that we probably know a lot more about just because scientists have been able to catch, live, tag, work up, track, which is pretty incredible to think about. That's a really cold, fairly inhospitable place to live. And it's incredible that there is life there. And think of the adaptations they have, slow moving, long lived. and their diet is a bit more diverse because it can be harder to find one specific item of prey.
Great. And speaking of the Greenland shark, I know it's a very slow shark. Do you know what the slowest shark is?
I mean, it's definitely one of the slowest as far as the swimming speed. I mean, you have a lot of these, like the little epaulets that are crawling along. They're not going to be high speed down the ocean. A lot of the bottom dwelling sharks tend to be slower, and their tails, like you saw the nurse shark, isn't designed for speed. If you think of a mako shark or a great white or white shark, that tail is really strong and powerful for chasing down fast food, right? Not McDonald's, but actually fish that are quite fast, things like tuna or mackerel. And so they're built for speed. A lot of the bottom dwelling sharks, things like nurse sharks, that angel shark, yeah, they can have a little burst of speed, but they're sitting and sort of waiting for their food. Or the nurse shark eats a snail, a big conch, it can't crawl very fast. So you have a lot of species that aren't necessarily swimming very, very fast at all because their food isn't fast. So they don't have to be able to get those top speeds like a mako or a white shark.
Great, thank you. Okay. Aiden, age 7, asks, what is the largest species of bottom dwelling sharks?
Probably nurse shark's got to be one of them. Some of you think of sawfish, which are actually a ray, can get quite a bit bigger than an actual nurse shark. But yeah, ones that actually will rest on the bottom. I mean, definitely where I live in the area, nurse sharks, which can reach about probably 9 feet, maybe 9.5 feet, would be the largest that we see kind of regularly on the bottom.
Fantastic. We had someone ask, in the pictures behind you, and some of them, there are fish following the sharks. What are they doing? Who are they? What are they?
Oh yeah, so it depends. So think if you're a small fish and you're kind of hiding out, hanging out by a bigger fish, it's sort of like having a bodyguard. It's a safe place to hang out. But the ones that actually attach on, if you guys look at the bull shark, this one here, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's got one underneath. They're remoras, and they'll actually suck onto the shark. They get a free ride, and sharks are really messy eaters, right? No hands, no silverware, no napkins. So there's a big mess of fish crumbs, and the remoras get a free meal. They'll clean little parasites and bacteria off the skin of the shark, and they get a free ride. So usually you'll see most sharks will actually have some size of a remora hitched on because it's a pretty good deal for them with the free ride, a big bodyguard, free snacks, and then the shark gets a little bit of a clean on its skin.
Excellent. Kira asks, are shark bodies shaped differently depending on what they're hunting?
It can help, definitely. If you think of a mako or a white shark, very streamlined, or if you see even these bull sharks and the reef sharks in these photos, very that torpedo shape, that what we think of a shark should be shaped like. Because they're hunting fish, all right? So fish that are moving fast, so their body is streamlined. The short fin mako is the fastest shark in the ocean, chasing down tuna, marlin, billfish, very fast fish. Again, if your food is fast, you've got to be fast to catch it. Nurse shark, a lot of time on the bottom. That tail is shaped differently. Their body is designed to be on the bottom. Their food is much slower. So yeah, absolutely, body shape can help determine what they're eating.
Great. Justin asks, do sharks leap out of the water?
Yes. So a lot of times people think it's just white sharks that breach, but there are other species. Spinner sharks, juvenile bull sharks, and juvenile black tips have been seen breaching. They've even seen basking sharks breach, which would be incredible. So threshers as well. So there's a couple different theories. One is obviously when they're chasing food, like the white sharks are going after seals and sea lions. There's also to get parasites off. There's also sort of, you'll see mobile arrays during mating season are kind of leaping, sort of showing off a bit, trying to get the attention of the other animals. So yeah, so there's different reasons as to why they do it, but absolutely they do breach.
Fantastic. One of our questions is, are there any vegetarian sharks?
So there are no vegetarians. The little bonnet heads they've recently discovered had seagrass in their diet. Not a substantial, it's not all they're eating, but there definitely is seagrass, and it's possible that whatever they're eating, they're getting a load of that as well. But no strict vegetarian or vegan sharks. Even if you think of little plankton, are actually little animals. So yeah, so different types of animals, but no veggie sharks that we know of. Maybe one exists and it hasn't been discovered yet, but as we know of, they are carnivores.
Great. Nomika, sorry if I say the wrong name, is asking, how many sharks can be born in one go?
Depends on the shark. So if you have like a Port Jackson shark, lays egg cases. So first off, I guess sharks have different ways of giving birth. So some lay egg cases, and if you guys go out to the beach, you might find them washed up on shore. People call them mermaid's purses. A little baby shark would have hatched out. Other sharks have egg cases inside. The baby hatches out, and then they're born alive. Or like lemon sharks we have in the Bahamas here, they actually are born alive, connected to their mother with an umbilical cord, which leaves a little belly button scar, which is pretty cool. So something like a lemon shark, anywhere probably about 10 to 15 pups, baby sharks. The Port Jackson shark lays one egg case. Tiger sharks, it's quite a range. It's anywhere from about 10 to 80 pups. Probably in the middle is about average. Whale sharks, I think it's up to about 300. But still not a lot. When you think about fish spawn, they lay thousands and thousands of eggs. Sharks don't actually do that. So having very few offspring is part of the reason that when people are killing so many sharks, their populations can have a hard time recovering because they have to live a long time before they can actually reproduce, and then they don't have lots of babies. So because of that, yeah, that's part of the reasons we're seeing many of the species have become endangered or even critically endangered.
Fantastic. Okay, let's have another little look, and then we'll ask a couple more questions, and then we'll say goodbye. Steve says he's heard that humpback whales sometimes kill great white sharks. Is it true?
I don't think humpbacks. I mean, the only thing I think is probably if they breached and landed on one. I don't know if that's happened. Orcas definitely eat white sharks. They have also been known to kill tiger sharks as well, and orcas will actually eat, they like the liver. Apparently that's the tasty bit. So they don't actually consume the whole shark, but orcas, killer whales, are able to kill a great white. I've never heard of a humpback. They're also, you know, the only thing I think of is it breached and then landed on the shark. The shark is in the wrong place at the wrong time.
I don't think I've ever heard of it either, unless maybe a mummy humpback would be like kill a great white when protecting her calf, but I've never heard of it.
It would have to be smashing it in the gills or something. I mean, you see dolphins doing, like hitting the sharks in the gills. It's possible, but I've not heard of it.
All right. And speaking of the liver, actually, someone was asking, what is the purpose of the liver in a shark?
So it's really, aside of filtration, it's really, the big thing is that buoyancy, that oily liver, and their diet. So they can adjust their diet to increase oil as well. And one of the things they believe with tiger sharks is sometimes they have some really weird objects in their stomachs. Are they possibly trying to use it as a weight, because their diet can be very oily depending on what they're eating. Think of fish. If you guys have ever had a fish or eaten a fish that tends to be a bit more oily, something like a mackerel versus a snapper or haddock that aren't quite as oily. So if they're getting too buoyant, is there a way to counteract that? So really it's a big part of obviously filtration, but then the buoyancy in the animal, so that they're not just bobbing at the surface or sinking to the bottom of the ocean.
Fantastic. Okay, great. There are still many questions, but for anyone who hasn't had their question answered, once again, I really recommend going over to the website, because the Sharks for Kids website is really amazing. It has loads of resources and fact sheets. So if your question was about a particular species, for example, let me share my screen and show you. You will find your answer to your questions and lots more. So I really invite you all to go onto the Sharks for Kids website and go and visit the Fast Facts, for example, where you'll find lots and lots of facts about all types of different species. We had some questions about cookie cutter sharks. So you'll find your answers there. And you'll also find things like coloring sheets and crafts and lots of information on how you can get involved. So come and visit the website. And also follow us on social media, and you can keep posted on what the upcoming webinars are. Who's tomorrow's guests?
We have Megan. This afternoon we have Ron Watkins talking about photographing sharks, which is really amazing. And then tomorrow is Megan Burt talking about eyes. She's actually looking at and doing research specifically on the eyes of sharks. So if you're interested in that, I think that's going to be, she actually works as a vet tech, so is usually working with specializing in land animal eyes, but has decided to take that knowledge and apply it to sharks. So that should be really cool as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Jillian. And thank you to everyone who's been watching today. We've had some great questions. And tune in later for Ron's talk on photographing sharks.
Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. And thanks again for joining us.
Thanks.